So we have no guests this morning, but our speakers this morning are Catherine Wagner Elfner and Nathan Elfner. So if you would please stand and if we can, let's give them a nice warm welcome.
Thank you. I look forward to your presentation. Wendy, you're going to do the 50-50?
Last three, 931.
Yay, Lou. All right. Happy dollars. Anybody have a happy dollar? Deb, come on. I'll come to you. Whoops.
This Friday, we'll be married, my husband and I, 55 years.
Yeah.
So it's $1 for each decade.
Yeah, she did by the decade.
20 in, 20 out. Okay. In my opening, because I got a little nervous last week, I did want to tell you, the last time I spoke at Rotary was in 1998, September the 29th. Now, how do I remember that day? My mom, who was really ill, flew up from Florida so she could see me speak at Rotary. And I wanted to tell that story. And of course, as you get a little nervous and you forget about things. But that's how I remember. And I have pictures of me speaking. That's when we were over at Rutter's. And it was it was wonderful because I looked out there and there she's sitting and I knew that she had made the trip. So that was the first time I spoke in front of Rotary. Okay.
Very nice. And that was our Rotary Club that he spoke at.
Good morning. It is 11:11, so that's Veterans Day. And if we can all pause and reflect on those who have given service to the nation, including those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, this is the day to do it. And I'm inviting you all to the exhibition of art in the Gold Star Garden, which is opening today at 6 p.m. at the York History Center. That's the one located on Pershing and Philadelphia Street. So we're going to recognize the artists who made their work in the garden. That was the same day we were reading heroes' names. And just the exhibit will be in the History Center through the end of the year. So come on down, 6 p.m.
All right. Oh, let me start. Ladies first, Dawn.
So last week was election day. As some of you know, I work as a judge of elections every year. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the York County Board of Elections. It is an enormous undertaking to run any election. And they're always looking for volunteers during the day, either clerks, machine inspectors, whatever. So if you're interested, let me know or reach out to them. But I just want to give them a shout out because good job.
Very good. Don.
It's Veterans Day, and Saturday morning I attended a veterans breakfast at my church, and there was around 25 of us, I guess it was, and I had found last year ago the same size that I wore back in 1953, and I wore this suit, the same that still fits. I'm the only one that was there.
That is quite the accomplishment, Todd. They don't take their money.
Yeah, here, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. All right. Anybody else have a happy dollar? Okay.
Good morning, York East. I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you, yesterday was the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps, started in Tun Tavern in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I have the souvenir glasses to prove it.
Very good. All right. Those were some great happy dollars. All right. So I have a joke this morning that I think kind of goes in line with our program. So a man went to his first pro football game, and his seat was so high up that he needed binoculars to see the game. As he was scanning the field, he noticed an empty seat on the 50-yard line, 10 rows back from the home team. And it was empty. He took a chance and walked down to it. There was another gentleman sitting next to the empty one. Is anyone sitting here? He asked. The older gentleman shook his head and said, no, you can have the seat. He started chatting with the older guy. These were great seats. The older person admitted it was his late wife's seat. She had died recently. The younger guy looked at him and said, gee, it's a shame to waste the ticket. Don't you have a family member or a friend that could have joined you? No, said the guy. They're all at my wife's funeral. All right. Club service. Today's the last day to bring in Thanksgiving gravy or stuffing. It looks like we have a couple of things there. Thank you very much to all who donated either product or cash. We're doing much better because of your collection. I'm doing pretty well on volunteers. I have just about all my spots filled for Saturday delivery teams, but I am looking for some small groups that can handle the deliveries to some of the high rises. Some of the high rise buildings have 50 residents that are getting a meal this year because they are based on those high rises are based on low incomes. So we're going to try a new program where we bring the food to the high rise. I just need people that can take it up to the individual residents. So if you know somebody that's a small group, let me know. I'd be happy to get you set up. That's going to be on Saturday, November 22nd, sometime in the early afternoon, if you're putting it down in your calendar. Let's see. Junior Achievement. That's going to be done in February. I believe it's February the 17th. For some reason, the director needs the names of our Rotarians that are going to help that day. Jim has got 2 names so far, but he needs a few more. So if you're even just considering it, helping out, please let Jim know. I'm sure with this much just time to work with, if something comes up and you're not able to help out on February 17th, I'm sure we'll be able to find some replacements, but he does need to get some names to Lisa sometime next week. All right. Does anybody else have any announcements for the good of the cause? Karen.
Passed away last week, November 3rd, and the services this morning, visitations from 10 to 11 at St. Mary's Church on South George Street.
Thank you. So yes, Diane Yoakum's father did pass away. So I'm putting that out for the Zoom attendance. So we lost our member, Ada Benny. Her obituary was in the paper on Sunday. If you missed it, her service is this Thursday. The viewing starts at 11:30. The funeral is at 12:30, and that's at First Presbyterian Church on East Market Street. It's across the street from the library, if you're interested in attending. And I think that's it. So we're going to call Jim Kraft up, who's pitch hitting for Jeff Snyder.
My pleasure to be able to fill in for Jeff. He had a farming accident over the weekend and wasn't able to join us today. So he asked me if I would greet and meet our guests and show them where to go. This morning we have Catherine Wagner Elfner and her husband Nathan Elfner. They're owners of the Burg Funeral Home and Cremation in Red Lion. I learned this morning that they are relatively newcomers to the industry, and it's going to be our pleasure to hear what they have to say, and please welcome them. Now, one of you have to hang on to this fancy gizmo.
I can project.
Well, we have people online
Oh, okay.
that need to hear you, and so. Yeah, clip it to somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't want to yell into it. Can you hear me okay if I have it down here?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Catherine Wagner Elfner, and this is my husband, Nathan Elfner. Together, we own Wagner, Elfner, and Burg Funeral Home and Cremation Services in Red Lion. Have a funny little story from last night. I've known Jeff Snyder for years, and he had reached out to me about a month ago, but last night, he told me that he wouldn't be here today to meet with us in the lobby, and he said he had a farming accident. I said, well, I hope you get better soon, recover quickly. And he said, you're a mortician. You're not supposed to tell people that. So I figured what we would do is I can tell you a little bit about my background. We can talk about what my role is at the funeral home, how we got started, and then Nate can talk about our big project that we have going on Cape Horn Road and what his role is at the funeral home. So I started in sales. I was in sales with Penn Waste for 12 years. And Penn Waste was a family business for me. I worked for my father. I was only supposed to be there for about a year, and it turned into 12 years. And I always wanted to be a funeral director. I can't really tell you why. I just had this desire to learn about what happened behind the doors of a funeral home. Every time I would drive by a funeral home, I would think, what happens in there? And how do you get the person from the place of death to the church in their casket, and what processes and procedures take place? And I was very fascinated with embalming as well. But I couldn't leave my job because I worked for my dad. And I always just had this sense of guilt that I can't leave him. I could never leave him. And so I had this grand idea that I would start school and work simultaneously. I thought, well, maybe I'll just be a trade embalmer, and I'll embalm on the side, and I'll continue with Penn Waste. And I went back to school and simultaneously worked. So I was in school full-time, worked full-time. And in December of 19, my dad called my sister and I into a meeting. I don't know if you know my father, but he's not a very loving, nurturing guy. And he just said, I sold the company. And I thought, this is my get out of jail free card. I can leave and not feel guilty. And so about 2 weeks later, he had an announcement planned for the rest of the employees at the company, sharing with them that the company had been sold. And I had planned to be at that meeting. And then an hour later, I had an interview lined up with the Burg Funeral Home. And after our meeting with the company and letting all the employees know that the company was sold, I went and interviewed with the owner of Burg Funeral Home. And she asked me, what are your goals and aspirations? What do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a funeral director, and I'd like to own my own funeral home. And she said, well, luckily for you, this one's for sale. So I went home that night and I said, I'm putting my 2 weeks in at Penn Waste. And my father wanted me to stay on through the transition with the new company, but I thought, it's going to be a publicly traded company. I have no loyalty to them. My loyalty was to him. I'm out. I'm done. So put my 2 weeks in, and I said to him, we're going to buy this funeral home one day. And after I passed my boards, my national boards, my state boards, we went through several negotiation periods with the owner. And on the third attempt, we were able to buy the funeral home. But during that time period, we also learned of property for sale on Cape Horn Road. So if you're familiar with the Red Lion area and all that construction, we apologize if you ever had to sit in any of that traffic over the last couple of months, but I promise it's for a good reason. That's our project, and we should be in there hopefully in the next
few months.
I'm gonna knock on wood, 60 days is what the goal is.
Yeah. So when our second
Take that.
when our second negotiation didn't go through with the former owners of the funeral home, we decided that, well, maybe that was a sign that we just need to start from scratch. And, it's funny how life works when those situations don't go through and you get so upset at the moment and you're so disappointed and why didn't this work out? But now looking back, it's like it was all part of the plan. It was all meant to be. And so that piece of property came up for sale next to Chapel Church, next to the cemetery next to Chapel Church. And they were disaffiliating from the Methodist Church. So to do that, they had to raise funds to be able to disaffiliate, which in turn was the reason why they put the land up for sale to raise the funds. So it just kind of all worked out that way. We put in our offer. There was other contracts. We were successful in getting our bid accepted. And then shortly after that, we were approached by the owner again. And she had heard that we were purchasing the land. And then we just decided and worked out a deal to just purchase the business itself. So we're now currently leasing the building from the previous owner until we can fully occupy that new facility. We really feel like a lot of funeral homes around are converted old homes that just don't give the type of service that we want to offer to our clients. And really to do that was the only way we saw the ability to do that is to build something from scratch. And we are really new to this. As Catherine mentioned, I was in real estate with my family for 16 years. I still have my license. And, you know, she wasn't a part of the business. So we really feel like we can bring a new perspective to the funeral home industry because a lot of the more established, older, family-owned, generational funeral homes, we feel just maybe are kind of stuck in older ways. One way that we really distinguish ourselves is by our marketing. I don't know if you've noticed any of our billboards. Catherine is very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Very active on social media. When we first purchased the funeral home, there was a couple hundred followers we have on Facebook. Now we're upwards of 85,000 followers on Facebook. There's not times where, you know, we go out in the public and we're not noticed. People don't come up to us. They tell us how much they love the videos. And I think one thing that Catherine mentioned earlier about her curiosity with the business is that it was a taboo thing to talk about funeral homes and kind of where you get from, you know, the deceased in the home or the nursing home to the day of service. And we've kind of opened those doors up. We've wanted to educate people. We feel like the funeral home industry really needs to go out and educate the consumer on what they are getting. Now, there are, you know, we don't cross lines. You know, there's a specific line that we will not cross into, but we really feel it's important to educate the consumer on what they are getting. And that's really how we feel like we distinguish ourselves from other funeral homes.
I'd like to talk a little bit about that more. So I had worked under the Burg ownership for 3 years prior to us purchasing, and consistently every year we served 100 families. And 2020 was a very busy year for us, as you can imagine, with COVID. And in 23, death rates were expected to be down. And when we purchased the funeral home in May of 2023, the previous owner had only served 23 families. So we're 5 months into the year. She served 23 families. And I'm looking at him saying, we have payments we got to make. Something's not right. We need to do something. We need to change something. We need to grow our business. And I know that might sound morbid to say, but people are going to die. You want them to choose your funeral home. So how do we do that? And so we started getting out on social media and just marketing ourselves in a different way, talking about what we do at the funeral home, which we've learned over the last almost 3 years of doing this. It's really built trust with our community and shown transparency and has allowed us to connect with the individuals in our backyard, basically. So we ended 2023 with 81 calls. And that was when we really decided at that point, something's got to give. We need to start doing billboards. We need to start doing this and that. In 2024, we served 117 families. Now, we did have a call with our accounting firm last night, and I said, is it just me, or what's going on? Or is everyone slow right now? And he said, yes, because a lot of the individuals that passed during COVID should be passing now, which makes sense. So it's a slower time of year right now for us, where usually around the holidays we get busy. Around the holidays you see depression, you see suicides, holiday parties, people are drinking and driving. You know, spouses, I do think at some point in our lives when we get older, you know, if we've lost a spouse, we want to be with them. And maybe you do have a little bit of control over when you pass.
when you get older, you know, you hear of people saying they want to see everyone before they go. So everyone goes to visit them at the hospital. And then when they leave, the person mysteriously passes. You know, is that coincidental? I don't know. But we're definitely seeing growth with the way that we've marketed ourselves at the funeral home and put ourselves out there. And right now we're operating out of a building that was constructed in 1934. When we take caskets downstairs to the chapel, we're using a freight elevator. We have 28 parking spaces. Our current location is on a hill in Red Lion. If you're familiar with where we are on West Broadway, one of the biggest complaints I heard when I was working under the previous ownership was, you know, parking's terrible. And you have older individuals coming to services and they're trying to walk down the hill with their walkers and their canes or getting someone down in a wheelchair. It's just not feasible for what we want to do with our growth and our future. The new location will be 1 story, 14,000 square feet.
About 15,000.
About 15,000. We'll have around 160 parking spaces, and it'll just be a brighter, more welcoming space. Typically, when you go into funeral homes, you see the dark drapes and the dark wallpaper, and it's just kind of a doomy and gloomy environment, and we want to bring something different to our community. So I'm a licensed embalmer. I'm also a licensed funeral director. You might wonder, what's the difference? Some states, depending on where you go to school, they will educate on one or the other, and you can be licensed in one or the other. When I went to PIMS, I went to Pittsburgh Institute of Mortuary Science. I was educated to do both. So I can meet with families, I can conduct funeral services, I can also go in the back room, I can embalm, I can do makeup, hair, get someone ready for their funeral services. So I really oversee all aspects of funeral service. And we also have 2 other funeral directors as well. The one sits on the State Board of Funeral Directors here in Pennsylvania. Both are amazing individuals, but I think we each have our own unique touch and our own different ways of doing things. Certainly have our own personalities, but we brought them on earlier in the year. We brought one on, I want to say in February or March, and then the other lady, she just joined us maybe about 3 or 4 months ago. But I think we're really strategically positioning ourselves for when we get into the new location, because we do anticipate more growth there. And the saying in the funeral business is that one funeral director should be able to serve between 75 and 100 families a year. So with our projections, we really should have 3 of us at the funeral home. I'm just looking at my notes here. We are often asked the question if we provide cremation services. And when the previous owner had the funeral home, it was just Burg Funeral Home. So every now and then we would have a family pick up the phone and call us, and they would say, "Do you provide cremation services?" Well, of course we do. We're a funeral home, but it wasn't in the name. So when we purchased the funeral home, we decided to add cremation services at the end. We do not have a crematory on site. We use a third-party crematory over in Lancaster County. It's called Evans Cremation Services. We've been working with them ever since we bought the funeral home, and the previous owner worked with them. Great family. We actually have had the opportunity to go over and tour their facility. But we've been asked, are we having a crematory put in at the new location? And the answer to that is no. We don't perform enough cremation for it to make sense to make that financial investment. And 2, the zoning ordinances don't allow for it. The area that we're in Southern York County really still leans more towards traditional burial. Now, if you get out towards West York, North York, you're going to see more cremation. But it's one way we're able to keep our costs down with cremation, is by using a third-party crematory. But I don't know if you've seen the show on HBO. I think, well, I don't know if it's called The Mortician. It's about the guy that is the crematory operator, and there's all this stuff that goes on behind the closed doors, and he's cremating multiple people at once. That does not happen. You see all the bad stuff on TV, and I can assure you that is not a common occurrence. But yeah, our job it's different. Every day is different. We don't know what we're getting into. We wake up in the morning and our phone could ring 3 times throughout the day, or it could go a week without ringing. And I think right now we're just filling our time with the new project down at the new funeral home and getting situated down there, getting everything ready to go. But back in September, we had a fairly busy month. We were fortunate to be able to serve the 3 officers with Northern Regional Police Department. And that was a very humbling experience for us to be able to be involved in that. Logistically, that was unlike anything we had ever been involved in before. And my connection there with Northern Regional was my brother-in-law is with Northern Regional, and he was good friends with Isaiah. And so when we learned of this incident, I called my husband and I said, what do you think about us reaching out to the department, asking if there's any way that we can help? And so we reached out, and the department had contacted the families, I guess through the liaisons. And about 2 days later, they contacted us and said, the families are going to take you up on your offer. They'd like to work with you. And I called my husband and I said, I just committed to this, but where are we going to get those 2 other hearses that we need? And everything else that we need. And fortunately, we have amazing connections within our community, our vendors, Matthews Caskets. They actually have their wood casket plant here in York County down from the incinerator. The company that we purchased our hearse from, they sent us 2 additional hearses for that service. Just had so many amazing people in this community step up to help us out. But that was an experience I'll never forget. I truly hope we never have to go through that again as a community, but what a humbling experience to be able to serve those 3 officers.
It was a huge honor to serve them. And it really, I think it, on a personal level for her and I and for our employees, I think it really showed what we're capable of. And I think, when your feet are held to the fire and you have to buckle down and do it, we did it. And I'll never forget that whole week we didn't get much sleep, nothing else, everything else was kind of put on the back burner. And it really didn't hit me what all happened there until later that day, once the services were done. And I saw pictures from news outlets and videos of really, when you're in it, you really don't realize the impact that it had. And then looking back later that day at all the news information, it really hit us on what a huge honor it was to be a part of that. And I can just say for myself, and for, I think Catherine would say as well, we were just really proud of what we presented to the public. And it just something that really showed that being new, I think a lot of established funeral homes and other people, might have doubted how we were going to accomplish all this. And I was just really proud that we were able to really put together an A+ effort for those officers, because that's truly what they deserved. They really do. They put their lives on the line, and it was just a huge honor to be a part of that and help celebrate their wonderful lives.
We purchased our second funeral home, August 26th of this year. We purchased the former Harkins Funeral Home down in Delta. One thing Nathan and I have learned when purchasing funeral homes is it's not an easy process. A lot of these owners are very tied to their business because it's been in the business for generations. And oftentimes the discrepancy and the big gap is between what the business is actually worth and what they think it's worth. And so we were actually supposed to buy Harkins last year, the end of last year, and that did not happen. And of course, I think we were both a little frustrated at that time, but we've learned that everything happens for a reason. And so we were contacted again by the owner April of this year. And so we own that funeral home as well. But one thing that we've found over the time that we've been in this business is not a lot of owners have succession plans. They don't have anyone to take over the business. So I think us being younger, hopefully we'll be the ones that they approach over time, our goal has never been just to own one funeral home. We'd like to own multiple funeral homes. But of course, staffing these funeral homes can be a challenge because of our hours. We don't have set hours. People don't just die between the hours of 8 and 5. And I've had people come and interview with us and they'll say, I want to work 8 to 5. And I'll say, well, that doesn't work that way. You have to sometimes come in on Sundays. You have to come in on holidays. I think our first Christmas together, I was called into the funeral home 3 times Christmas morning. So there's no consistency with our work, and it really becomes you. It becomes your life. But fortunately, we have some really great people that work for us, and we have great part-time staff that help us out. But it's a collaborative effort, and we would not be able to do what we do at our funeral home without our staff. And we tell them that. I think we do a pretty good job letting them know that they're very appreciated. All right. What questions do you have? We've just kind of rambled. Lou.
One is, you made the funeral business a talkable business. Usually you don't talk about what happens afterwards. And your marketing took you from 0 to name brand recognition almost instantly. I followed you, and you and I had conversations about that, which I thought was phenomenal. So I just want to say it was inspirational too, because when I work with other small startups or people trying to get into business, they say, how do you compete with the big boys in town? And you demonstrated beautifully on how to do that and put your elbows out there and get in front of everybody. So it was truly what I'm trying to say, it was an inspirational watch of your growth and how you started this thing. I applaud you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. That was challenging for me when we got in contact with the marketing company. We work specifically with a marketing company that only works with funeral homes, and it's called Disrupt Media. And I had followed the owner online for several years prior to reaching out to them. And when we had our first initial meeting, he said, have you ever done video content before? And I said, no, I'm not one of those people that will take a selfie and put it online or take a video of myself. That's just not me. In fact, when we got married, I said, I'd like a small wedding because I feel very awkward walking down and having everyone look at me. I don't like that. I just want it to be us. And so this was very foreign to me, but the one question Ryan asked me was, who's your competitor? And I don't like to look at other funeral homes as competition. I think we all are able to provide something different to each of the families we serve. We all have our own unique ways of doing things, but I named the person closest to us. And he said, well, what are they doing to market their business? And I said, nothing, they don't need to. And he said, if they don't start doing it, or if you don't start doing this, someone else will. And it is a unique approach because we've always been told as funeral directors, you do not talk about what you do at the funeral home. You don't show what you do. And there is a lot of questionable stuff online on YouTube, videos of people embalming and they'll black their face out. And I don't think that that's right. I think you can educate without showing that stuff. I think you can talk about it, you can answer questions, but it really has grown our business significantly, especially our pre-need side. And what I mean by that is people who come in to pre-arrange their funeral services, prepay, and just get all their arrangements in place. And I commend people for doing that. And I'm not sitting here trying to sell you anything, I'm just talking about it. But I can't tell you how many times I've had families come in and sit with me for arrangements, and they all look at each other and they say, well, do you know what mom wanted? Did she want to be buried? Did she want to be cremated? And oh, by the way, how are we going to pay for it? So pre-arranging and pre-funding your funeral service is really important. And we talk about that a lot, so much that the first 7 months of this year, we had 137 people come in to pre-arrange with us, which is pretty amazing. But it's being able to talk about it and build that trust within our community, and just having that bonding and rapport is really important. So if you're in business and you're not on social media branding yourself, I think it's something to seriously consider, no matter what business you're in.
I just wanted to say that I think to Lou's point, a lot of people ask us, what distinguishes you from other funeral homes? And I think our biggest distinguishing aspect is with the marketing that Catherine does with the videos and everything else. There's so many times that when a family comes in that has never met us before, they say to her, I feel like I already know you. And I think anybody that's been in any type of sales position before, and me being in real estate before, I worked for Century, it was a Century 21 franchise. I never had someone come to me and say, I used you because you work for Century 21. They worked with me because they liked Nathan. And I think that really distinguishes us from all the other funeral homes that have decades and generational experience. We distinguish ourselves because when they come in, they feel like they already know who they're meeting with and what to expect. And I think that's really what that marketing has helped distinguish us from other funeral homes, and really has made a success because of that, because they're not just buying Wagner, Elfner, and Burg, they're buying it because they trust Catherine and what she has shown to do.
Yes.
Own a cemetery, and how do you work with cemeteries?
Your first question as to whether or not are we able to own a cemetery? I think we probably could, but I don't know the answer to that. As far as working with cemeteries, when we have a family that comes to us and they say, Mom wants to be buried in Salem Union Cemetery, we have a contact list that we reach out to. I reach out to the Gravedigger Cemetery Association, whoever I need to reach out to at the cemetery. And usually a lot of those cemeteries, if they're right next door to the church, a lot of people think they're owned by the church. It's completely separate. Like where we are building on Cape Horn Road, Chapel Church is there, and then there's Highland View Cemetery, and Highland View Cemetery is totally separate from the church. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that.
Anybody else? Yeah. I'll defer to the.
Are you familiar with natural burials?
I just had my first green burial 3 months ago, and we buried a lady in her backyard. Yes. I know. When she called me, she said, can you do this? I said, I don't know, but let's figure out a way to do this. And of course, we contacted our attorney, crossed all our T's, dotted all of our I's, but they had a huge property in Southern York County, and we buried her on her property. Natural burial is no embalming, no casket, and no vault. She was shrouded. So, yep.
And the biggest thing with that is just timing. It just has to be a lot quicker than normal.
And making sure that we're within,
Municipal
Right.
guidelines and stuff.
Have you pre-planned?
he knows what I want. We also have life insurance, and we have our wills, and we have all of our estate planning in place. And he knows if he cremates me, I'm coming back to haunt him. He's not allowed to do that.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, oh, don't go anywhere.
Okay.
So do we have any other questions before? All right, I want to thank you. It was a great, informative program. I will tell you all, a couple of years ago, I took an OLLI class called Putting the Fun in Funeral. And it was all about exactly what Catherine was talking about, was pre-planning. So when I told my one daughter, she said, well, thank you. I have no idea what you want. And my other daughter got a chuckle because I texted her before family dinner and said, can you come over a little early? I need your help writing my obituary. So there's a lot of plus to pre-planning, especially letting your family know what you want. So thank you for your presentation. We have a book over here we'd like you to choose, and that book, children's book, will be donated to one of the libraries at either the YWCA or Children's Aid Society. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next week's program is by Tiffany Ayers, and she will present Keys to Bees. So it should be interesting. And we're back here in the links. And Nate wants to take a picture of, yep. And while they're taking a picture, we are adjourned. See you next week.